Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. So today we're doing something a little bit different because our creeps keep showing up in the news, and sometimes we just have to revisit the creep that we just had, on the show. This is from our very first season. We talked about Piers Morgan. This ran in July of 2019.
He's an OG creep.
He is an OG creep. And good God, you guys, I can't believe how long ago that feels when it's really not that long ago. But he's been doing stupid shit and awful shit for a long time. So it's always good to revisit that. But I guess we'll talk a little bit today. Sonia, wait, let me just say something here. Thank you guys that joined our Patreon page. Well, Likey, I think that's how it's pronounced. They always move to Florida. That's the name of the podcast. They joined a Patreon page. Nikki and David. And iTunes reviews, the good ones. Fenny, Cuckoo, Femine? I don't know. This is terrible. Tiramisu 8402. I'm doing my best, you guys. Abby Lucy. All you guys left us 5-star reviews. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And I want to tell the person who left us a 5-star review and then yelled, Sonia, fix your mic. It was not on her end. It's on my end. But Sonia, I got a new modem. So I think the connection will be better from now on.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed, y'all. Can't promise we won't interrupt each other, but we'll do the best that we can.
Yeah. For people who don't know, I'm in San Francisco, Margot's in Brooklyn. We're just talking. We can't see each other.
Right.
We don't turn on cameras because cameras are very distracting. And I'm like a little parakeet. If you put a mirror in front of me, I'm like, hello, pretty bird. Hello, hello. I just stare at myself because I'm vain AF. So this is really, so we can't see when the other one's getting started to talk. So I apologize if I interrupt. I get excited.
Well, also, and me too. And I should say also, the camera lags the connection, I feel. And
True.
So for all my shows, except for the ones that I do in person, I just always do it over Skype without looking at the person. But I see your great face, and you're pointing to your shirt that says bread because you're a bread person.
I am a bread person.
You can find us on Facebook. We have a basic Facebook page.
That's where they go to complain about our language or our cackle.
Our cackle and language. We use salty language in this podcast, so if that's a problem for you, you may want to listen to another show. Yeah. And we're on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody used What a Creep for 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
I mean, somebody had What a Creep for 10 years, but y'all know what I'm saying. We're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. Our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. A bunch of you asked for stickers. I put a bunch of them in the mail, and then a bunch more of you asked for stickers. So round 2 with the mail. I'm hoping to get it out this weekend. So just email us your address, even if you are overseas, because half of you are overseas at this point. If you want, you could check our show notes. So what you do is you swipe your phone on the artwork, and you can see links there, or you just go to our site, What a Creep Podcast, and all the episodes are there. And we include links for our show notes so that you do know that we are not just making this stuff up. We do due diligence.
We do.
And read things and watch things and try to be as prepared as possible. Now, originally I was going to be talking about the U.S. gymnastics stuff. That's terrible. But I decided instead we're going to talk about Piers Morgan because everyone started talking about it in our Facebook group, which is really popular. Once again, it's What a Creep podcast group if you want to join. It is private. But so we said, okay, we're going to revisit this. And then next week I'll do the gymnastics one. So Sonia, do you want to give a little background first on Piers, just overhead stuff, and then leading into why he quit the cushiest job I've ever heard of in my life, which must be hosting Good Morning Britain when you have no discernible talent whatsoever?
Yeah. Piers Morgan is a professional, he was a professional journalist turned TV personality. He has hosted many different shows on the BBC, and for a while he was a replacement here in the US for Larry King, and Larry King was insanely popular, but everyone here fucking hated Piers Morgan because he's garbage, and he lost that job. He still writes a column, I believe, for the Daily Mail.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is correct, and he hosts a show. What's it called? Like Good Morning
Britain. That's the
Britain.
one he
Thank
left.
you. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So he has a long history of trashing Meghan Markle. And then after her very popular interview with Oprah, with Prince Harry and her and Oprah, it was seen by over 17 million people, by the way. It's like insane numbers because we all rarely watch the same thing at the same time anymore. So the idea that like everybody was watching this one thing is pretty amazing. So in the interview, Meghan Markle reveals like, she had suicidal thoughts. There was a lot of racism in the monarchy, surprise. And Piers Morgan then proceeded to trash her all over Good Morning Britain and said that he didn't believe, like she said she had suicidal thoughts, which is so sad. And I feel so horrible for her. Did you watch the interview, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I didn't watch it in real time. I watched it later, but yes.
Yeah, same. I'm one of the people also that didn't watch it in real time because I didn't. I'm sorry. But I did watch it later. And when you remember, like, Prince Harry lost his mother to, like, she was harassed by the press nonstop. She, like, I mean, literally, like, they were chasing her, and that's why she, like, got into a car accident and died. Because she was trying to run away from the press. Now he marries this woman. He's clearly super in love with her, and she's in love with him. And she's being harassed by the press constantly. People like Piers Morgan, who are the fucking worst. And, she shares this very personal thing about herself with Oprah because it's important. And I think she also really wants to help people. And Piers Morgan goes on his show and he says, well, first of all, he doesn't believe anything she says. And he's like, who did you go to? What did they say to you? I'm sorry. I just don't believe a word she said, Meghan Markle. I wouldn't believe it if she read me the weather report. And he's the fucking worst. It's the idea that this man is like, show me the receipts for your suicidal thoughts.
Exactly.
Fuck off.
And fuck you. And then the next day, one of his colleagues on set called him out, a biracial person, by the way, called him out on his shit and said, you have a weird fascination with Meghan Markle. She, they met. So supposedly when she was on Suits, which was a USA Network show, and I guess it's around the world because all of her crappy shows go around the world. But he was a fan of it. I used to love USA Network, by the way. I used to watch it all the time.
Yeah. And people love Suits. Yeah, they love Suits and Psych and Burn Notice, all those things that are on USA. I get it. They are good, like popcorn TV. Monk. I loved Monk.
Yeah.
It's some good, like passive popcorn TV.
And so she was. I never saw the show. I think she's gorgeous. I mean, and what I've seen her, she's always so poised and put together. But he apparently kind of had a crush on her because he saw her on the show and he started following her on Twitter, and she followed him back, and they started DMing. And when she went to London for work reason or whatever, she said, "Hey, let's meet up for a drink. Let's meet in person." They meet up, they have a drink, and then he puts her in a cab, and the way he puts it is, and then she met Harry, and I never heard from her again, and like this great love of his like went away. And it's like, those, that's just networking, and just people are, Hollywood show business, it's a social industry. You do have to kind of meet people, in order to and it's always good to have people in your pocket that are friendly press people that you could talk to. That's a smart thing to do. And it doesn't mean she didn't like meeting him or anything, but now that she's dating a royal, she's probably not going to talk to a guy who's a column in the Daily Mail. Why would she?
He's such a
shithead. Yeah. So he was angling for an invitation to their wedding. Never happened.
My gosh. So ridiculous.
It's
Like
ridiculous.
practically begging
Yes.
for an invitation in his column. Like, I'm sure I'm going to get an invitation any second now. Like,
And we should say he's a royalist. He's very loyal to the royal family. Look, I'm a dumb American. I like a republic. Our system isn't perfect.
correct.
Believe
Obviously, waves arms around myself. Yes, obviously not perfect.
not perfect, but I prefer that to a monarchy. But I do like The Crown on Netflix. I find royal families interesting as just
Yeah,
a history geek.
absolutely.
And
They're super interesting.
yeah, but it's not that important. I mean, seriously, like let's be grown up about this.
Yes.
And it's absurd, and he's just was hugely abusive of her. So. That's the latest on him. Oh, by the way, it's March 18th when we're recording it. He has a special on ITV tonight. So, as my friend Grant from Grant's Rants Hollywood Talk, it's a podcast. This asshole will fail upward. Don't worry about him and cancel culture.
Seriously. So, he goes on, he's like trashing her on his show. The guy calls him out. Instead of being a fucking grown up, he stormed off his own show.
Like a baby.
Like a baby. Like, I'm done with this. You could trash me, but not on my own show. First of all, not his show.
Exactly.
There's other people on the show. And he's just gross. Like, you can also go on and find other clips of him just being super inappropriate with the female co-hosts. Like the one that got shared in our group about
her dress.
She's wearing a really cute dress. And he's like, that's how I know it's spring, because she's wearing a really short skirt. And she's like, first of all, it's a dress. And second, it's not that short and it's adorable and it looks great on her. I'm like, fuck off, Piers Morgan. He's such a baby. And he's just, he will fail upward. There's like 2 new networks that are getting ready to start over there. One is like a Rupert Murdoch one, which I'm sure is like a perfect fit for that shithole.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
And when I say shithole, I mean Piers Morgan. I'm not saying
the UK.
Britain is it. Yeah, I'm not saying you're a shithole. You're great. I'm like, he's the shithole. He's the shit stain. And then there's another one called like GB, I think. And both of them are kind of circling him for a job there. And yeah, he's going to land somewhere else and people will watch him. I don't know why they would watch him, but I mean, I guess there's people that, he has his fans. There's people who agree with him, and we're going to talk about one of the people who likes to defend him here in like 1 second. I just want to say, like, he's also screaming about cancel culture. And I've tweeted this a few times. There is no such thing as cancel culture. What people who scream about cancel culture are the people who don't want to be held accountable for their actions.
Right.
Piers Morgan is one of those people. He wants to do or say whatever he wants, and he doesn't want any repercussions. And when there are repercussions, it's like, how dare you, cancel culture? It's not a thing. You're being held responsible for your actions, maybe for the first time in your life. I don't feel sorry for you. Fuck off.
And he doesn't feel sorry about it either, so
no,
fuck
he's
off.
not sorry. He's not sorry. Do you want to talk about Sharon Osbourne?
I certainly do, because I've been reading, I've been looking. So she's on The Talk, which is in America. I don't know if they get this overseas, but I'm sure most of you have heard of The View, which was started by Barbara Walters 25 years ago. It was a long time ago.
She's a creep, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she'll definitely be. Once she passes, and we'll wait a few months, and then we'll talk about her. Because we're all kinds of appropriate here.
Because we're the worst. We talk shit about the dead.
We're classy motherfuckers. Anyway, so Sharon Osbourne, I almost said Sharon Stone, not Sharon Stone. Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne's business manager, the woman who gave him his career. Seriously, she is the machine behind the Osbourne family. I used to love the Osbournes on MTV.
Oh my gosh, that show got so huge. It was so popular.
And a lot of it is her. She was the brains in that outfit. She's smart. I am reading this book of her about her life called Sharon Osbourne Extreme. And and she grew up very tough, hard scrapple kind of life. Her dad and mom were both in show business. Her father was in the music business in the 50s, 60s, 70s when it was, busting knuckles. Like people, like the music business was just rife with thieving and fighting and crap like that. And so she learned by her dad about the music business. And I think this sort of shapes her personality because her whole brand is that she just shoots from the hip and nothing scares Sharon. And Sharon's brave and Sharon's smart and Sharon doesn't give a shit and blah, 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 blah. So it's a good idea to put her on a talk show. She's very good at speaking. She's got this loud, rowdy family, so she knows how to hold things together. She's quick, but that can also get her in trouble, which it did this week. So she hosted some talent shows with Piers. I don't like talent shows, so I don't watch them. She hosted, I don't know if it was like Britain's Got Talent or...
I was going to say, I think it's Britain's Got Talent or something like that.
Adjacent
an equivalent.
Yes. So she co-hosted with him. She considers him a friend. And so she sent out a tweet after he walked off his stupid cushy job because he's a child. She said, I support you 100%. You're paid for your opinion. And I'm like, isn't it a news broadcast? Like, there could be a segment where he gives his opinion like Andy Rooney used to on 60 Minutes. But anywho's.
Call me old-fashioned, but
Kurt Cobain should have died a long time ago. Remember he did that?
Did he say that? Oh my God.
He talked about Kurt Cobain. This is how the world was 25 years ago. He died by suicide. Spoiler. But so there was all these kind of candlelight vigils around the world. Nirvana was a big deal in our generation. And there were a lot of white dudes and Ted Nugent who were like, screw that. He was on drugs and he killed himself. Screw that. Yeah, he's a wimp. He's a blah, 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 blah. So there's always like that kind of a person out there. And that, to me, that's what Piers is doing. Right?
Yeah, he totally is.
Anyway, so Sharon's like, I'm your friend and blah, blah. So Cheryl Underwood is a co-host on The Talk. And I believe she's filling in for someone else who was in the hospital or something. So I don't know if she's full-time or used to be full-time, but she's on the show right now. She's African-American. And the way that the show is set up is they have topics and they just like riff off the topics. And so Cheryl had told her, I'm disappointed in you saying that. I think that Piers is a racist and a misogynist. And I don't like the language that he used. And Sharon did not take to that criticism very well and really lashed out. And we have the links in the show notes. You can see it for yourself. But the way she speaks to Cheryl is so unprofessional, is not even beginning with it, but just condescending, and tells her, points at her and says, you explain to me when he's been racist. You educate me, demanding, and then saying, and don't bring me your tears. You don't deserve them.
Okay. That's some serious bullshit. First of all, you don't get to tell people when they can cry or not.
Right.
Second, like, it's not her job to educate you.
No.
Like, educate yourself. This drives me insane. There's this whole, especially like last year, there was a lot of protests, all around the world for Black Lives Matter. And there was all these like angry white people who were kind of demanding that the African-American people in their life, like, educate them. And it's like, it's not their job to educate you. Educate yourself.
Well, we just had a murder spree in Atlanta. And I don't know if you're overseas, if you heard this, but this 21-year-old white male went into a couple of spas in Atlanta and killed 8 people, and 6 of them were Asian Americans.
Yes.
And he basically, the officer, a white man, by the way, who talked to the press, whose job it is to speak to the press, that is also to help calm people down. Like, this is what the cops are doing. This is what happened today.
Yes.
And he said, well, he says that he had a sex addiction and that this place reminded him of his sex addiction, and it really upset him. And he was basically just, having a bad day.
Yeah, I have bad days too.
Yeah.
I hardly ever kill anyone.
I eat pizza and drink not Chardonnay. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
it's revolting. I'm not, but people
Yeah.
now are like, it's like, well, why are, are these people legal? Or are they illegal? Why should I care? And it's just, I have a lot of Asian friends, and it's just like, I know they're, especially women friends who will tell you, do you want to hear, you think you've been sexualized since you were young? Try being Asian and see what happens.
There is a whole thing. Yet the sexualization of all women at young ages, but specifically Asian women for sure. And if you think this doesn't tie into Piers Morgan, it totally does in the way that the excuses that people make for white men who fuck up.
Yep.
Whether it's a white man like Piers Morgan who acts like a fucking child and storms off his show and says shitty things about women, or a 21-year-old man who goes on a murder spree, the excuses that the lengths that people will go to like treat them like special snowflakes and to understand why they do the things they do. It boggles my mind.
It's infuriating.
I'm like, that guy, I don't give a shit about his bad fucking day. You know who else had a bad day? The families of the 8 people he murdered. I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear about his sex addiction. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck him.
And fuck Piers Morgan. I'm glad that we mentioned the salty language thing at the top.
Yeah, this is going to be one today.
These people.
Anyway, Sharon Osbourne. So since this happened, Cheryl Underwood, by the way, I think had so much poise and like took it a lot better than I would have if Sharon Stone were pointing her finger at me. Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Stone would beat the shit out of me. But and I'd like it. No, just kidding. But no, Sharon Osbourne, like, I don't know. But anyway, so the show is now on hiatus. And if this had happened 10 years ago, trust me, nobody would care. They would just send you to HR and that was that. They just check it off their box. Yeah. But now, so Leah Remini used to be on the talk. She was on the first season. So was Holly Robinson Pete. Now they're talking about when they were on the show with Sharon, both saying that Sharon used racial slurs about Julie Chen, who is married to Les Moonves still. She was a co-host on the show, Chinese American. They, all kinds of like, and Sarah Gilbert was a co-host, and she's a lesbian and she's married and stuff. And Sharon would call her vulgar names. And I think, once again, going back to Sharon's upbringing from what I read from her book, is that everything was okay to say. Like that made you tough and cool and whatever. I'm like, you're 68 now. If you really want to grow as a person, you're going to have to cut some of that shit out. And
there's a difference between like real talk and telling it like it is and being blunt and saying things that are hurtful and shitty.
Right.
There's a difference.
There's a huge difference.
And she knows there's a difference. She knows.
She's not stupid.
No, she's not stupid. She's a grown ass woman. She knows, but she does it anyway. Because she can get away with it. Now they're calling her out on it.
And so the show now is being investigated. I think it's a CBS show. So it's being investigated. Sharon's like, I was set up by my producers. And it's like, don't buy that shit, you guys. She's been in this business for 40 plus years, on television for 20 years.
Yes.
Not a dumb broad. She knows what she's doing. She got really emotional for the wrong person and for the wrong cause, I say.
Yeah.
Harness that for good shit, please, Sharon.
Yeah, you really want to like fucking throw your weight behind Piers Morgan?
He's so gross.
He's so gross.
He's so gross, you guys. So
he's like a bag of spoiled ham. I'm sorry, I'm look shaming. Shame on me.
No, but he's an asshole. He's
a huge asshole.
He's a huge asshole. And that's why he was in our first season. He's one of our first people we wanted to cover. So that's what we're going to listen to today. It's going to sound a little different because I think my mic wasn't working that day. So we had to use my laptop mic. So it'll sound just a little different, but you'll get used to it because y'all are amazing.
You are.
So be sure to follow us on all the things. And before I forget, Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and occasionally TikTok. I'm trying the TikTok. That's where the kids are. How about you, Margot? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram, and my blog is brooklynfitchick.com. We also co-host Dorking Out just to prepare you guys, and we're going to be covering Streets of Fire.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Which is going to be dope. And we're recording with Patrick Bromley of F This Movie. That should be really good. So here we go. This is our interview from July 2019. Piers Morgan. What a creep.
Creep.
I think we are ready to go now. So, Sonia, you are reading the story today. Who is this asshole we're talking about today?
Today's asshole is Piers Morgan.
Ooh.
He is so yucky. So, I put this together with a little help from my friends at, of course, Wikipedia. Always Wikipedia. New York Magazine, Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, and The Hollywood Reporter. Before researching this episode, I was pretty sure that if you said Piers Morgan's name 3 times while looking in a mirror, he would appear and say something ignorant and shitty. I am not convinced I'm wrong, but we will start at the beginning.
I forgot to mention, everybody, we always end the show with someone who's not a creep, so we're going to leave you in a good mood, just so you know.
Yes, we won't leave you with, like, the nasty taste of Piers Morgan in your mouth. That sounded wrong. That came out really wrong. I'm really sorry, everybody. Because you know he tastes really bad. He tastes like...
You know he has bad breath.
You know he does. You know he smells like rotten meat. It's so gross. Anyway, Piers Morgan was born in 1965 in England to Vincent O'Mara, an Irish dentist, and Gabrielle Sybil. When Piers was just 11 months old, his father passed away, but his mother eventually remarried to Glenn Morgan, and hence why he is now known as Piers Morgan. I don't have a lot about his childhood. I'm sure he was a lovely child. As someone who has a degree in journalism, I'm embarrassed to say that Piers Morgan actually went to college and majored in journalism at Harlow College and worked for several local newspapers. I did too. He started doing freelance for The Sun in 1988 and eventually started writing a celebrity gossip column called Bizarre. Did you ever read it? I know you love, like, British tabloids.
I was more of a 3 a.m. girls kind of person myself. Yeah.
So when he was writing this column, he really started mingling with a lot of celebrities, and he started to feel like he was a celebrity too. And he's a very ambitious creep. Piers Morgan was named the editor of the News of the World by infamous creep Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, I know. We'll do, I'm sure, a whole series of episodes about him.
Yep.
Piers Morgan was just 29 years old when he got this job. So he was the youngest editor of a British newspaper in more than 50 years.
Wow.
So when he was at the News of the World, he'd been there for about maybe almost 2 years. But he left that job after he caught a ton of shit for publishing some photos of Catherine Victoria Lockwood, who was a former model and then the wife of Charles Earl Spencer. I guess that's Princess Diana's younger brother. So the Catherine Victoria Lockwood was leaving a rehab center, and they published the photos and outed her as someone who was struggling with addiction. And that's some serious TMZ style shit right there. And we get that kind of shit all the time here in America, but apparently it's there is an actual, like, code of conduct for the press in Britain, so he violated those things. And even professional ghoul Rupert Murdoch said he went too far and kind of, like, chastised him in public, but then later apologized to Piers in private for not having his back. That's because Rupert Murdoch is a piece of shit.
Yeah, they're all garbage people.
They're all garbage people. You will hear that a lot in this episode. So after that incident, Piers decided to try his luck at being an asshole at the Daily Mirror. And if the Daily Mirror sounds familiar to you, it's probably because it was during Piers Morgan's watch that the Daily Mirror was involved in a very well-publicized phone hacking and police bribery scandal. This is the same scandal. The same scandal also involved Piers Morgan's former employee, News of the World. So What a weird coincidence that two places that Piers Morgan works for were hacking people's phones and bribing the police. So weird.
Jesus. Yeah.
Totally not related, I'm sure.
Oh, of course not.
So while Piers was at the Daily Mirror, the phone hacking was limited to like celebrities, politicians, and members of the British royal family. At News of the World, the hacking included the phones of a young, like, murdered schoolgirl. Do you remember this story?
Oh, yeah.
Millie Dowler. And when they did that, by the way, they deleted some of her voice messages that made them think that she was still alive and checking her messages. And I can't even imagine anything more heartbreaking. What a bunch of fuck-ups. They also hacked the phones of relatives of deceased British soldiers and victims of the London bombings of 2005.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Cool. Side note, eventually advertisers boycotted News of the World and it forced them to close. So you guys keep those Fox News advertising boycotts going because that shit works. Eventually it worked. So in 2004, Piers Morgan resigned from the Daily Mirror, but not because of all of his phone hacking things, but because he published a bunch of fake photos that depicted Iraqi war prisoners being abused by British soldiers. He never apologized for this. And speaking of never apologizing, just last year, Hugh Grant won a lawsuit against the Daily Mirror for hacking his voicemail and specifically named Piers Morgan as one of the guilty parties involved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But Piers Morgan's such a fucking asshole. So he tried to mock Hugh Grant on Twitter by tweeting out Hugh Grant's mugshot from when he got busted for lewd conduct in 1995. And it didn't go over well because people love Hugh Grant and everyone hates Piers Morgan because he's terrible. So everyone on Twitter came to Hugh Grant's defense because Hugh Grant has admitted his mistakes and
he did
moved
it right
on.
Away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Piers Morgan never does those things, and he's a shitty person. He's just a gross troll, and he should be living under a bridge. So one more thing at Piers Morgan's time at the Daily Mirror. In 2000, he bought a bunch of shares in like a computer company called Viglin. I've told you this before. I'm terrible at names. Viglin. Sure, let's say it's that. Right before the paper published information about that company as a good investment in their like business column. So that's like insider trading kind of thing.
Yeah.
He was found by the Press Complaints Commission to have breached the code of conduct on financial journalism. He didn't get fired because he's, white guy. And but the columnist did. Interesting enough. But even though he was a well-established piece of shit, Piers Morgan was somehow able to get work on television. And he is the one who replaced Larry King on CNN for 3 years.
I remember.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Everyone hated it. It was canceled due to poor ratings because no one wants to see his disgusting, ugly mug during the dinner hour. He, of course, blamed Anderson Cooper for his low ratings. He claimed that Cooper's show didn't attract enough viewers as a lead-in, which resulted in CNN releasing a statement defending it. And I just think this is fascinating that a network would do this. I don't think networks usually do this sort of thing. And they said, for the 2.5 years that AC 360 served as the lead-in to Piers Morgan's program on CNN, it always delivered a higher rating than Piers's program. And for the 7 months that Piers Morgan's program led into AC 360, 360 always delivered a higher rating than Piers's program. It is sad that Piers is trying to find a new job by misrepresenting how he performed in his old one.
Wow.
Yeah. CNN drive me nuts lately. They make a lot of bad decisions, but I thought it was pretty awesome that they were like, fuck you, Piers Morgan.
I remember when Chelsea Handler was a guest on the show, and it was right when he was going to, he knew the show was going to go off the air.
Yeah. And
he said something to her, and he was just being obnoxious. She goes, well, maybe you would still have a show if you didn't do that. And he had nothing to say to her. He just stared at her like, she's just like, she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think his rise in America is probably really due to Simon Cowell. I think Simon Cowell was like the fucking shit when American Idol started, and there was like this desire to find the next Simon Cowell, and I think CNN thought Piers Morgan might be that person. Turns out he isn't.
Yeah.
So he's also worked as a judge on America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent, and he's the editor-at-large at Mail Online. He writes a weekly column for them, and he currently co-hosts Good Morning Britain and says assy shit there about 3 times a week. So this is the real focus of what we're going to talk about today, which is it's time to talk about all the stupid shit Piers Morgan does and says on an almost daily basis. Why is Piers Morgan such a Trump fan? Do you have any idea? Want to venture a guess?
He was on Celebrity Apprentice.
This is correct. He was on Celebrity Apprentice. That's when he became friends with the future Predator-in-Chief. Piers used to say that he was friends with Trump, but he disagreed with him on several issues. But then once Trump won the election, within weeks of his swearing in, Piers Morgan went all in on Trump. So he immediately said that he opposed the Women's March, the one that took over this whole country the day after Trump's inauguration. He described all the protesters as rabid feminists, which
I was one of them, by the way.
Yeah, me too. And I love that he says it like it's a bad thing. I'm like, sure, we are.
And by the way, that feminists are a fringe group, by the way. Yeah. Just like, I hate that whole thing. Just makes me crazy when people talk like that.
Yeah.
I was in D.C. For the first Women's March the day after the inauguration, and with my friend Margot, and we were walking the streets to get to the protests, and people were yelling out of their windows and waving at us like, "Hi, thanks for coming. No one was here yesterday. No one was here."
That makes me so happy.
Oh, it was so amazing, and just the energy was amazing. So, yeah. So
I did the march here in San Francisco, and I just remember feeling that we were going to be okay.
Yeah, for a day we felt really good.
Yeah, I'm like, I would love to have that feeling again. But I don't have it right now.
No, I have all my pictures on my iPad, and every once in a while I go through and scroll through them.
Yeah, it was an amazing march filled with rabid feminists.
Yeah, we were foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, he said that he was going to organize a men's march to protest the creeping global emasculation of my gender by rabid feminists. And I think we all know where we were when those marches happened.
Yeah.
He's just such an asshole. And if you go through his tweets, you'll find plenty of references to feminazis, which is
a Rush Limbaugh thing from like 30 years ago.
Yes, and it is the favorite word of white men who think women are better seen than heard. It's like a dog whistle to like other chauvinistic assholes, basically. So Piers is a huge fan of Trump. He has sat down and kissed Trump's ass on television 3 times.
Oh my God.
He has done, every time Trump has come overseas, he has done an interview special with Piers Morgan. And I refuse to watch them, so I'm sorry if that doesn't count as doing good research. But I assume all of the questions were, why are you so awesome? And will you go to the prom with me? I assume, because really, ew.
Ew.
It was pretty gross. Everyone overseas fucking hated it. He got panned. But he still doubled down on his Trump love. He even applied to be Trump's chief of staff.
Stop it.
He did. He wrote a letter asking for the job. He didn't get it, but there's still time. There's still time. I know, right? I didn't know that.
Can you do that if you're from another country? Can you be your chief?
I don't know, actually. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if there's any... apparently there's no fucking requirements because he's got awful people working for him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Good question. So shortly after Trump announced his super racist Muslim ban, Piers Morgan went on Bill Maher's Real Time. Bill Maher.
We talked about him.
What a creep veteran, Bill Maher. And he defended the ban. One of the other guests is this Australian comedian, Jim Jeffries.
Yes.
Immediately flipped him off and told him to fuck off, which I think is amazing. And then after which, J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, tweeted, "Yes, watching Piers Morgan being told to fuck off on live TV is exactly as satisfying as I always imagined."
Because, Piers can't handle it
No.
when people confront him. He just gets this quizzical look on his face like, well, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, he's so smug and sure of himself.
No,
that,
No, he can't handle it at all. And then he's like, how dare you? How dare you question me? And I'm just voicing my opinion. I thought we were all voicing our opinions here. And it's like, your opinion's fucking wrong. You know, it's not.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so gross. And good for Jim Jeffries. He was living the fucking dream. I would also love to flip off Piers Morgan.
And Bill Maher, we could probably do two.
Yeah,
for one.
no. Oh my gosh, that would be so good. And what if Ann Coulter was there too? Oh! I might want to nuke the site from orbit just to be sure.
Yeah.
So since that time, Piers Morgan has been in many, many Twitter fights with J.K. Rowling, and her dunking on him just over and over is pure magic. You can find it all on Twitter. When she tweeted about how watching him being told to fuck off on live TV is exactly satisfying as she always imagined, he tweeted that this is why he's never read Harry Potter.
Oh,
and she's
what a comeback.
I know, you told her. And then, she tweeted back to him, if only you'd read Harry Potter, you'd know the downside of sucking up to the biggest bully in school is getting burned alive. And she also usually refers to him as celebrity toady Piers Morgan.
Which he is.
So pretty much every celebrity with half a brain hates Piers Morgan. And he's had Twitter fights with everyone. So I have a nice list here. He's had a fight with Ariana Grande.
Ugh.
He has had fights with John Legend and Christy Teigen.
Oh, God.
He's had fights with Ewan McGregor, who dropped out of going on Good Morning Britain after Piers Morgan said all those shitty things about the Women's March. He got into it with Harry Potter star Emma Watson. He got into it with Game of Thrones star Sophie Turner. And he got into it with Sarah Silverman. Good fucking luck arguing with Sarah Silverman.
Any of those people.
Right, they're all smarter than him, all of them.
Yeah.
He's a real piece of shit. John Cleese told the Radio Times in an interview that Piers Morgan is, quote, a real third rater, and I always thought he was an awful creep. I love John Cleese.
Thank you, John Cleese.
After Lady Gaga revealed that she was sexually assaulted and suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, Morgan accused her of doing it to personally benefit herself. Because admitting that you were sexually assaulted totally benefits, you. How would that benefit Lady Gaga?
That's that sweet, sweet rape fame that women all want.
Oh, we all want it so bad. He's such a gross fucking tool. I hate him. Earlier this year, Piers Morgan had the balls to criticize James Bond himself, Daniel Craig, who after his second child with actress Rachel Weisz, was spotted carrying their child in one of those like baby Bjorn things. Do you know what those where you?
Oh yeah.
It's like a little backpack, but it's in the front, and you put your kid in there. He tried to get the like emasculated Bond hashtag going because he's an asshole, and apparently holding babies is women's work. But then dads all over the world started posting photos of themselves carrying their children just to spite him.
Oh,
and,
does he have kids?
He does. He has 4 kids.
Oh, for God, I feel bad for them.
I know those poor kids. They probably never hugged. He probably never hugged them, which is like we said, probably really good because he probably smells like rotten meat.
Yeah.
So Chris Evans tweeted that you have to be so uncertain of your own masculinity to concern yourself with how another man carries his child. Any man who wastes time quantifying masculinity is terrified on the inside. Chris Evans is rad, is my point
He's Captain America, and follow him on Twitter because he's always right.
He's always right. And
he's
then
amazing.
One of the stars of The Good Place, her name is Jamila Jamil. Do you know who she is? So she referred to Piers Morgan as a shit stain and a giant pile of wank.
We might hear more about her at the end of the show.
Oh, okay. Okay. I am not a fan of the Kardashians. They are not my thing. Mm-hmm. But when a photo of Kim Kardashian came out and there was some visible like cellulite, Piers Morgan felt like this was a good time to let everyone know his opinion on Good Morning Britain. And one of the co-hosts on his show, it's usually a woman. I think they rotate them a lot, but this one said that I think we should celebrate cellulite. It's a fact of life for like 90% of women. And then he says, why should we celebrate it? We put up with it, we tolerate it, but not accept it. Flaws should not be celebrated.
Oh, fuck you.
Dude, look in a fucking mirror.
Look in a mirror, dude.
You are a gigantic flaw. You look like a chunk of Spam that formed a face. He is disgusting. I hate dudes that are like, well, anyway, I'm gonna say more here. So in 2018, this really gorgeous plus-size model, Tess Holliday, was on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine. It was a really big deal. Cosmo is kind of one of those magazines that people hold up as like, that, you know, they Photoshop a lot or, you know, makes women feel bad about themselves. And they put this plus-size model on their cover. It was a big deal. And here comes gross old white man to share his thoughts about it. And he said putting her size 26 body on the cover was as bad as putting a size 0 body on the cover. But please note, Piers Morgan never said jack shit about the size 7 or the size 0 bodies that were on the cover.
No, of course not.
It's not an issue until, you know, someone overweight is on there, basically. He's disgusting. And just the other day on Good Morning Britain, this is all Good Morning Britain. What a shit show. It's probably like their Fox and Friends over there. I don't even understand why Piers Morgan has a show. But anyway, he was interviewing this plus size model. Her name is Angelina Duplessis.
Duplessis?
It's like, yeah, it could be.
Okay.
Who knows? And she's in the new Miley Cyrus video for Mother's Daughter. And she's plus size model actress. And he, of course, like, while questioned by Piers over whether her appearance, quote, glorified obesity, Angelina said that maybe Piers wasn't really in the position to make such a claim. She said, honestly, if you're really concerned about people being obese and representing something bad, you would lose weight. And she said, you're fat too. And you're on TV every day.
You know what, world? You can be overweight and healthy.
Yeah.
I don't mean to shock you, but you can be like 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight and still be very healthy.
Right.
You can be at a very slim weight and be very unhealthy, okay? Right. So just shut your fucking traps. Leave people alone.
It is not your business.
It's none of your business.
Here's the thing I don't get. Why does Piers Morgan think that he needs to have an opinion on everything? He doesn't.
It's that white male entitlement. It's just, and from a class conscious society, and it's hubris. It's just hubris.
Yeah, when he was, you know, being all shitty about Tess Holliday being on the cover of Cosmo, he said something about like, you know, obese people like her or are a drain on Britain's like healthcare system or whatever. And she's like, I'm American. Fuck you. I'm America's problem. You know? And I was like, good for her. Like, Piers Morgan, shut the fuck up. Nobody cares what you think. Speaking of, I've got a couple more stories about what a shitty person he is. When he's not fat shaming, he's being an ignorant prick who refuses to accept non-binary individuals. He has said things like this on the show. He says, if I can identify now as anything, he's like, can I just be anything I want? Can I be an elephant? I can literally say now I'm an elephant. And do I get afforded elephant rights? Can I go to the London Zoo and demand to be put in an elephant compound because I have decided I'm an elephant? And then
I would like for him to be in a compound, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
He also said that schools are now running wild with non-binary kids, and he referred to it as a contagion, and that it was a massive new fad.
Ugh.
He's such a piece of shit. Can you imagine like this? Let's say I don't know much about Good Morning Britain, but let's say it's the Good Morning America of Britain. Could you imagine if like Diane Sawyer went on TV and was like, non-binary kids are just like a contagion? Or
we do have that though with Fox and Friends.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like not a network TV show. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know? Fuck
Right.
it. Fuck Piers Morgan is my point.
Yeah.
So Piers Morgan has been in the news a lot lately because he tried to start a fight with the women's soccer player for the U.S. team, Megan Rapinoe.
Mm-hmm.
He was just really, really, like, her big thing, by the way, if you don't know, and she's fucking amazing, was they asked her, like, when your team win, because they were going to, will you go to the White House? And she said, I'm not going to the fucking White House. And, everyone on the right, like, clutched their pearls and was like, oh, how dare her disrespect the president. And, of course, the president tried to, like, engage with her, too. And I think he thinks that she's African American because then he was like, I've done so much to help black people in this country. And I'm like, she's not black. What are you talking about? You fucking stupid asshole. Oh, he's the worst. Anyway, Piers Morgan felt the need to defend his orange crush. He called her cocky and accused her of loving herself. Like, that's a bad thing.
But that's
and
a problem.
Then was like, our team is going to, like, destroy your team and blah, blah, blah. And then, she celebrated after scoring a goal. And then he started shit-talking her then. And it's like, this is how male athletes act all the fucking time. But
Right.
when a woman does it, then it's something to be singled out by Piers Morgan and highlighted as something terrible. He's just a piece of shit. A real piece of shit. So I could go on and on listing like every fight Piers Morgan has had with everybody, but then this podcast would be way too long. So I'm just going to say, in conclusion, Piers Morgan is a trash bag filled with spoiled mayonnaise and rotten meat. He is a professional troll. He is a shameful, lying, awful human being who will do or say anything to get publicity for himself. And we should just all ignore him. And maybe he'll go away.
That was awesome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be done with Piers Morgan. I don't want to see his stupid, spammy face.
Ugh. They have him. I read the Daily Mail because I love trash, and he has a column there all the time. And occasionally he'll kind of, talk to Trump because he's for gun control, or so occasionally when there's a big shooting,
right,
he occasionally will say something. But other than that, he's totally kissing Trump's ass.
Oh yeah.
And then just constantly, and especially he policing women and their bodies and what they do. He thinks that's his job.
Yeah. He also likes to.
Yeah, he needs to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I actually didn't include this other thing that I read about how he wrote a whole column for that newspaper about like, well, if black people would like us to stop using the N-word, then they should stop using it in songs.
Oh, shut up.
And I was like, yes, that's the problem, Piers Morgan, is that we all really want to sing along with Kanye West's Gold Digger. Like, no, asshole, that's not the problem. It's like, he's such a old white man. He's a real piece of shit, basically.
He's a dick. He's a dick.
Huge dick. And that's his job. It's like his job to be, like I said, he's a professional troll at this point. It fascinates me that he has a degree in journalism. And I just can't believe that people keep hiring him for things. I'm like, I think he's very unlikable.
Oh, he's incredibly unlikable. I can't think of one likable moment.
No.
No,
he's yuck. Ugh.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to talk about somebody who isn't a creep?
Please.
Or to hear about someone who isn't a creep?
Please.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned her in the show today. Her name is actress Jamila Jamil, and she's on NBC's The Good Place.
I love that show.
I've never seen it. I want to watch it now. She's born 1986 in London, and she was a DJ for BBC One. She was the first solo female presenter, and she was on the BBC One radio chat show between 2009 and 2012. And her big thing was that she raised the audience ratings with her shift when she went on there, but the radio station didn't promote her ratings. The British papers promoted the fact that she had gained weight since joining the station. So she went up like 3 dress sizes or something like that. And then she had people staking out her house, and they would call her a fat C word to take her picture. And she was kind of like, she was body shamed. And this was like someone who's just, she was breaking new ground. But of course, somebody has to, give you a hard time and shit all over you, because God forbid a woman gets to enjoy a thing for more than 5 minutes. Right. So she's really into body positive, being a body positive activist. At that time, when she was being fat shamed, she started her own plus size clothing line in London. And then she said that, she still is uncomfortable with her body. She suffered with anorexia when she was younger. Oh. And at age 17, she was struck by a car and basically had to relearn how to walk. So she has, like she says, like a complicated relationship with her body.
Yeah.
But for a while, she was plus size. She's slimmer now, and then people give her a hard time for being slimmer now. It's just her body.
Yeah, she can't win.
And that's what the whole thing is. And her favorite thing to do is she calls out fat shaming, and she calls out celebrities who post diet bullshit on their Instagram pages, and people who accept ads to do for like flat tummy tea and stuff like that. She goes, you're just selling things to make people shit.
Yeah.
And it's not going to help them lose weight, and it's bad for them, and you're selling a bad image to them. And she's shamed enough people that they stopped doing it. Some of them, not all. But it's her mission in life is to end fat shaming and to promote women to not think about your bodies, and just think about your mind and your spirit and what you want to do with your life. And that should be your focus. And she has thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter and on Instagram, and she speaks at conferences around the world. And she is just completely just beautiful and amazing and smart and funny as shit. And she hates Piers Morgan too. She calls him a shit stain.
and a piece of wank.
And a piece of wank, which is the best ever.
I know. I'm going to start saying that about people now. What a piece of wank.
Piece of wank.
You fucking wanker.
Wanker. So that is our not creep of the day, Jamila Jamil.
That is a really good one. I didn't know all of that about her. I watch The Good Place, and it's fucking funny as hell. If you guys don't watch The Good Place, you should watch it. It's really, really funny, and she's really funny in it. And I had never seen her before until I saw that show, and she's really, really great.
It's her first acting gig. And I forgot to mention, she had a breast cancer scare in 2016. Yeah.
Oh, no.
And then after she's okay now. She's fine.
That's good.
But she decided to move to LA, and she always wanted to get into TV and movies. And she just, at that point, like once she got through the cancer, she's like, fuck it, I'm going to go to LA and see if I can do it. And she's really successful, but she's her own person, and she's smart, like I said, and funny. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram. She's calling out people on their bullshit all the time, and she's just the hero that we need.
That's amazing. I can't even express like how much someone like her would have meant to me, to teenage Sonia. Yeah, or just even what we're seeing now. There's so much more body positivity and like these plus size models that are telling Piers Morgan to fuck off. Like those things would have been so huge to young Sonia. And I sometimes think like, God, if I had taken all the time and energy I have spent focusing on what I'm eating and how much I weigh, I probably could have cured cancer by now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women I know, we all spend like way too much time worrying about shit like that, which instead we should just worry about our lives and being healthy and things like that, and not like, oh, I need to be this size or I need this number on a scale. And I'm glad that she's doing that. That's awesome. Good pick.
She's amazing. So is this the first season? We just had our season 10,
yes.
So I guess we're going to start a second season.
Oh my God. Season 1 is a wrap, y'all.
Y'all, thank you so much. Trust us, we'll be back right away with season 2. You're not going to wait long at all.
You're not at all.
But please follow us in all the places at What a Creep Podcast. Our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at The Sonia Show, and that's Sonia with an I, or thesoniashow.com. And you can find both of us at dorkingout.com and Dorking Out Show on Twitter. We talk about movies. It's very, very fun. Sometimes creeps come in, but it's mainly movies. Please listen, follow us, talk to us. We take requests, all of that. And thanks for doing this, Margot, for putting this.
Absolutely.
This is so fun. It feels good.
It's cleansing.
It really is.
Yeah. And you can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And my blog is brooklynfitchick.com. And Sonia, I'll be back next time. It'll be my story. And it's about a total fucking creep that's in the news right now. And that's all I'm going to say.
Good hint.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.